All right. Well, we'll call the council meeting to order, and no one is to be excused. Minutes from December 10th, we need a motion for approval. Anne Marie is moving them. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Excuse me. And we have the special council minutes also for approval for their adoption. Need a motion for that. Hubie moves. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to call for post-agenda items. Are there any post-agenda items today? Anything from staff? That's good. It's a long enough looking meeting. Oh, no, all good. Okay. We'll move on to the adoption of the agenda then. Tracy, we'll move that. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried, which leaves us at question period, notice of motion. So we'll pause for a bit here. And while we're waiting for anything that Todd will be able to probably help us with, just wondering, 10:45, we have Cole Steinley for a delegation at 11 o'clock. We have STARS delegation, and after lunch at 1 o'clock, we have Stuart for some decisions in regards to emergency protection services equipment. So if I get going and forget about those dates, please stop me, somebody. Todd, do we have anything coming in online?
Well, Molly, our online stream is going very well. We have 7 people viewing today, but of those 7 people, nobody has asked a question. I promise to let you know as soon as somebody has a burning question to ask.
Okay. Thanks, Todd. We will move on then to item 7.1, the schedule of fees for second and third reading. And Lane is with us if he has any other comments to make, or if it's simply to go ahead with the 2 readings.
That is the case, Madam Reeve. This received first reading and council is in a position to proceed with second and third.
Someone like to move second reading? Kelly will move second reading. Lionel, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. On the schedule of fees, a new dwelling, a stick-built dwelling, is 90 cents a square foot. An RTM, or a moved-in building, is 30 cents a square foot. Just wondering what the so there's quite a discrepancy there in price. Is that because most of the permitting is done at the site when a moved-in dwelling is being built? Is that the difference?
Hello. I can maybe follow up on that for you. I do believe that with the stick-built building as opposed to the RTM, there is some more effort involved in the plan review and the actual inspection of the dwelling. One other piece of information to share with council is that we are looking right now at safety codes and the county services with regards to safety codes, and looking at reviewing how we handle those and what's being done. And as part of that, we are going to be doing a review on the fee structure of the safety codes permitting. I know this has been a question for a long time, and I think a lot of it has stemmed more out of the electrical permit fees. But a full review of all the fee breakdowns and whatnot is on its way.
Thanks, Jeff. Clarence.
Yeah, I have a question too, and I realize that it's probably something that's been there as long as I've been on council, but it kind of popped out on me the other day when I read that when we're doing the no-till drill, we do it at $11 an acre. And then if you go over 160, it becomes $20 an acre. And we also have if it goes over 3 days, it's $300 per day. Has anybody got an idea of the rationale behind all those numbers? Could I hear that? If there is some, I certainly don't know. I have an idea what they might be, but someone could explain that a little bit. That would be great. If it takes for it till next meeting, that's fine also.
Maybe our creator guy might have a response.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Clarence. So what we do is the $11 an acre is for everything per time, I guess. So somebody rents the drill, and they ask for us to bring it to them to do a 135 acre circle, and then we need to move that to the next guy to do work as quickly as possible. So we put that cap at 160 acres, so that at 160 acres, it has to move to the next renter. If it isn't able to move to that next renter, then we have to charge more for that, because we have to get those drills through, between 40 and 50 guys in a very short period. Now, nothing's saying that person, a person can't rent the drill for more than 160 acres. It just has to move after it's done so much. And then that 3-day time window is, again, just to entice guys to move a little bit faster along so we can get it to the next person. We've kind of mapped out how much acreage a no-till drill can do in a day and how much acreage the 455 drill can do in a day. And we think those are very reasonable numbers. If that makes sense.
Thank you, Todd. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks, Clarence and Todd. Other questions? Kelly?
My question was around emergency services, and I know it's not a change or anything. I just wondered if anybody knows if we have ever charged for a non-permitted intentional burn without a permit. Just a question.
There have been some fines issued for that. There haven't been actual fees charged that I'm aware of recently, but we are certainly in a position to do that if it's necessary.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Good discussion. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the second reading? Opposed? That motion is carried, taking us to the need for a person to move third reading. Clarence will move. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Is Cole online yet?
I don't see him, Molly.
Okay. We'll go on to item 7.2 then, the land use amendment, bylaw 2000-21. Reading 7.2.
Hello, thank you, Madam Reeve. The purpose of this land use amendment is to redesignate the subject lands from agriculture to single lot agriculture to accommodate a proposed subdivision. The subject lands are LSD 2 and 7 in the southeast of 281713. West of the 4th, which is in Division 2, 5 kilometers west of the hamlet of Tilly. The applicant would like to subdivide out the existing farmstead, so a parcel that is approximately 4.45 acres, from the 80-acre agricultural parcel. So the proposed subdivision contains a house and outbuildings. This subdivision would be considered the third parcel out of this border section, and in the agriculture land use district of our land use bylaw, the maximum number of parcels allowed on an unsubdivided quarter section of land is 2, which is the reason that the redesignation would be needed. The single lot agriculture land use district is intended to accommodate 1 additional parcel for country residential use. The quarter section was split into 2 parcels prior to 1949. I can't find any real history on the reason for this subdivision. Well, like I had mentioned before, the intended use for the subdivision is country residential, and the remaining parcel of land will be agriculture. So it is recommended by staff that first reading be given to bylaw 2000-21 to redesignate portions of this parcel from agriculture to single lot agriculture.
Thank you, Maria. Questions? If there are no questions, could we get a motion to move this forward? Hubie? Hubie will make the motion. Favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
Madam Reeve, if I could, had my hand up. I have a question.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's probably nothing. I just had questions on the aerial view because I'm not in the neighborhood. It looks like there's buildings and maybe a dugout outside the perimeter of this subdivision. So I just wondered what we're leaving off the subdivision, if it's necessary for operating this acreage.
Thank you. So you're right. There is a dugout that is north of the proposed subdivision, so that will remain on the remnant parcel. And then I believe the other items that are outside of the subdivision, those are just haystacks. But the dugout is something that I have discussed with the applicant, and it is something that we can discuss going forward with the subdivision. The applicant would like joint use of that dugout so that it can be used for watering the subdivision as well as cattle on the remnant parcel. Which is why that subdivision line is so close to that dugout. Yeah, and that's something that definitely can move at the discretion of MPC.
So a follow-up question. So do they have water other than the dugout?
They are connected to rural water for household use, and then irrigation is used from that dugout, which is filled by the works of the EID.
Thank you.
Okay, Kelly. Anne-Marie?
Yeah, good questions, Kelly. And I think we do first reading, and then it's going to be interesting to hear what people around this potential subdivision have to say, and then we could still make changes too. Because it being the third parcel out, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what people say.
Any other questions? Hubie?
Thanks for the questions. It's marginal land and pasture, and it looks like it's irrigated with a pivot. So we'll see in the future if anybody has any, if there are any naysayers about it. But I think it's fine the way it is.
That's why we always like to get the first reading done so it gets into the process. And Hubie did make that motion and we did pass it. So if there are no further questions, we will move on. And any sign of coal yet?
Nothing yet.
Okay. Well, Todd, maybe we'll begin the Ag Service Board chat then with item 9.1, your update.
Sounds really good. And wintertime's kind of a boring update because we're not too busy out in the field making progress that way. But I think it's important to note the guys in the shop have just been rocking. We got most of our big repairs done. Actually, I think all of our big repairs are done now. And just the minor repairs, the little things that get bent and twisted during the season are kind of getting done now. Howard is kind of been the guy for the last 4 or 5 years to go through all the first aid kits and safety equipment in all the vehicles and equipment, make sure that it's properly stocked and ready for the season. And that's always a January time when we can bring everything inside because it's typically a lot colder out. A fair amount of work, I guess, been done on county properties. Lane's been doing some great work selling things, and we've been working out some rental agreements, and then been working a little bit with Mark doing the county farmland leases, leases. So that's been really good. An interesting December was for CCIP, our coyote program. The last time we're going to run CCIP for a while, we brought in 687 coyotes. So that was good. I think we received a lot of phone calls, some good, some bad, but all in all, I think everybody understands where we're at. And again, office-wise, safety stuff, job hazard assessments, and standard operating procedures got a major overhaul this year. With Catherine going away on maternity leave on us in the summertime, that kind of takes a lot of her knowledge out of our realm, so we wanted to make sure she had it all wrote down. We do have all our tenders and quotes out now for new equipment. I sent you that nutrient management webinar series, I believe is what it's called. So I think that was a really good job. Brad Calder did, like I said, the lion's share of the work on the organizing. We were just more the support staff, which was great. And then on top of that, just, normal building repairs, chem storage type stuff, just keeping everything rocking. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thanks, Todd. Hubie.
So Todd, have you had a lot of calls on the coyote program being shut down for this time?
we're not very good at writing down every single phone call and counting it, but yeah, we've received quite a few. And when we talk to the guys that have come in, there's some mixed feelings about it for sure. The program has ran for 20 years, so we certainly have some long-standing partners that way. But I think everybody's willing to still do some harvesting on their own without our incentive, so that's really good. And yeah, I think providing that the prices stay at least marginally high, we can still take some of them coyotes, the problem coyotes, off the landscape, and guys can still make a few bucks.
Okay, thanks, Todd.
You betcha.
Other questions? Well, Cole has joined us, and Todd has not finished his work of the day with us, aside from his, or in addition to his moderating. So we will go to item 11.1, which is Cole's report on NRSC, and then we'll be returning to Todd when Cole is finished. Welcome, Cole.
Thank you very much, Madam Reeve and councillors. I have a very short report this month again, nothing too exciting. We had a leak located in Rolling Hills again. It was discovered on December 12th. Brooks Asphalt excavated it and repaired it on December 15th. It was on a 4-inch main line and it was repaired with a coupler. So they didn't have to shut down any services to any houses or residents or customers in Rolling Hills, so that was good. Fairly simple fix, and everything is back to normal. So, as far as the rural water project or the wastewater collections, everything is normal. Operations, nothing out of the ordinary to observe or report. So that's the extent of what happened over the last month. Currently, we are compiling information and writing up our annual reports. So on behalf of the county, we do up 12 water system reports and 4 wastewater system reports for a total of 16 that we have to report to Alberta Environment. And they are due at the end of February. So we're compiling them right now and should be done within the next couple of weeks. That's the extent of my report, if there's any questions.
Thank you, Cole. Any questions for Cole? Lionel.
Yes, Cole. Wondering about the leaks in Rolling Hills. Like we've experienced quite a number of them. Are there some fundamental problems with their underground infrastructure that is causing this, or is this more of an anomaly?
I wouldn't go so far as it being an anomaly. Jeff might be able to want to jump in as well if he has any input on that, but it's HDPE's piping, so they're all fused. And what we're seeing on the last several of these leaks is the fuse joints are coming apart, or just a pinhole is developing in them, and then it comes to surface. So it's not like a catastrophic failure or a rupture, it's just a small, tiny pinhole, and it has been on these fuse joints. So they're basically taking a softer type of plastic and they melt them physically together, and that's how they do these joints. So these pipes are flexible, bendable, and it's are identical to what you have in the County of Newell water project. Same type of piping, small, bigger diameter, but same stuff. But it's pretty aged in that they're about 30 years old-ish, maybe a bit more even, 40 years old. So it's just age, and some of these joints are failing. So we can repair them with a repair clamp. So it's fairly simple to fix them. That's why the last few haven't been too bad, but it's just, I think, has to do with age of the system.
Sorry, yeah, just to follow up on what Cole's saying, he's absolutely right. The pipes under the ground are minimum 30 years old, probably closer to 50, 60 years old out there. It is, I don't know what the word is to use, a very odd size of pipe. It's a kind of a modified 3-inch. The wall thickness is probably not where it should be with today's standards. Contractors have got pipes to refuse down there, but like Cole mentions, we're finding better luck with clamps and wraps on these pipes to fix them up at this time. And again, they are all on the fusion, the old fuse joint. So a lot of that can go to the process that was used to fuse it initially, and how much quality control there was over that.
Thanks, Jeff. Wayne?
Jeff, have we possibly looked at what it would cost to start replacing that pipe? And of course, if we did that, we'd probably look at the sewer system too. What's your comments on that?
We haven't looked at a specific price to go in and start replacing the water system. I think, in my opinion, the sanitary system is of much higher importance, but I think you make a very great comment there that if we were going to look at the sanitary system, we should, it would be short-sighted not to look at the water as well. In the infrastructure master plan, we had a number to replace the sanitary system with a gravity-fed system, and I believe that was a 2012 number that was just north of 4 million. I think, you know, to replace the entire sanitary system in Rolling Hills, that number is probably a little bit light. And then to add water on top of that, you might not double it, but you'd probably come fairly close to it.
Thanks, Jeff. Other questions? Clarence?
Not a question, more of a comment. I think at the time when we had those numbers, there wasn't a big buy-in from the folks in Rolling Hills. Since that time, I think we've had a lot better luck with the sewer system as it is today than we had at that time. We were having a lot of problems because of one person competing against the other for pressure and in the line and so forth. After we've put in the lower collection point, those problems have mostly gone away. I think if we're going to put in an $8 million, $9 million expense on water and sewer, we're going to have a lot of buy-in from folks in the hamlet, and I'm not sure that conditions have changed a whole lot than they have from 2012 when that particular thing was rejected, but and things have basically got better. So I think it's something certainly we have to be aware of. And if conditions do deteriorate more than they are today, I think maybe you'll get buy-in, but it'll be pretty difficult to persuade those kind of dollars from the residents, I think, at this point in time.
Jeff?
I do agree with those comments wholeheartedly. The installation of the new lift station did most definitely assist in some of those competing pressure issues we have. One issue we still do constantly run into in Rolling Hills is overusing the sanitary system, and we get calls every time there's a melt, every time there's a rain, every time there's a lot of surface runoff. We are getting calls because at that time everybody feels that there's a blockage in the line, that there's an issue in the system. But what's happening in not all of Rolling Hills, but most of Rolling Hills, is a lot of people have their weeping tiles, their storm water tied, and they drain that into their septic tanks. So every time it rains, you can imagine that if 80%, 90% of the homes in the hamlet are running that water into a septic tank, everybody's pump is on at the same time. And those are the, we've gone back to say, now these are the only times that we're truly having these issues. So one of the things that that we have started and are going to continue to take a little bit larger role in is, some public education down there, and get the word out to these people that, that they can help themselves out a lot as well by disconnecting those surface drainages from going into the sewer system. And that's really the main thing now that is overcharging that sanitary system.
Yes, that has been an ongoing concern. I have Mark and Brian.
Good morning, council members. Not to add too much more to the conversation, as Jeff has summarized that quite well, as has Councillor Amulung, but from the 2012 study, the water distribution system was recommended at $164,000 in upgrades. The sanitary sewer collection system upgrades were approximately $4.7 million. And some of what Jeff is talking about with storm sewer upgrades as well, which we've done some minor works to improve the situation. Those were also identified at $1.976 million within the community of Rolling Hills. And Councillor Amulung is absolutely correct that the feedback from the public engagement with the community was that they could not afford any of those improvements based on most of the community being on fixed income.
Which is not an unusual story. Brian.
So it bears the question, what's the long-term future of the community, and what is their what's their anticipation? We've talked all around what the short-term issues are, but to me it's no different than Scandia or Tilly. Do you wait till you have catastrophic failure and then we're tasked with a $9 million in Tilly or something similar in Scandia? I don't remember I mean, we were all up against the wall. We had issues, and we decided to go in there and fix it. My question is if you want to live in Rolling Hills, what's the long-term viability of that community? And I wouldn't want to see it go anywhere but positive. But I think we have to set this up so that we have a plan to replace that infrastructure. I mean, you said it, Jeff. You've said it, Cole. The date on this, the clock is ticking. They're in the twilight of this infrastructure, and it needs to be replaced. How do we put a plan in motion so that it's affordable for those people in Rolling Hills and keeps the viability of that community? Because I think it is viable, and I'd hate to see that be thought of as anything different. But there needs to be a longer-term solution than just fixing the immediate stuff. That can be done short-term, but it's not long-term.
Yes, and I think we are aware of that, and that's a discussion for the future, certainly, not far future. We have another delegation at 11, so are there any other questions for Jeff or for Cole in particular? Well, Cole, the good news was it wasn't Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, which is the normal time that it seems like water systems fail. So you got her done before Christmas this time, and thank you. Hopefully you had a good break yourself, and all the best in 2021. Thank you for the work you do for us.
Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.
All right. Our moderator had indicated that Glenda Farnden was online from STARS. And there she is, waving to us. And so, hello, Glenda.
Hello.
Welcome. And glad that you are able to be with us in this new world of technology, but at least it's better than no communication at all and not accomplishing anything. So we will sit back and have you tell us what you're up to.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's great to see all of you. I so wish I could be there in person, but we will look forward to that for the next update. So in the meantime, I want to bring sad regrets from Jeff as well. He wanted to join us, but something else has arisen, and so he is unable to be here. So you're stuck with me today, and I'm pleased to bring you your annual update and want to formally thank you for continuing to be a supporter of us. I'm just going to try and share my screen here. Give me just a moment. Now, are you, let's see, share. Are you able to see that?
Yes, we are, Glenda.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, then we'll get started. So first and foremost, we are partners that save lives, and we thank you very much for continuing to support STAR's efforts. COVID-19 has changed all our lives. STARS is a physician-driven organization, and our #1 priority is to protect and maintain unimpacted operations. STARS transport physicians are regarded as experts in the field of critical care, and probably the reasons why STARS was asked to participate in an international consortium to share learnings about COVID-19. We developed rigorous PPE and decontamination procedures along with buddy system oversight as a safeguard. We created an online portal system to assist rural healthcare professionals with airway management, ventilation, and resuscitation protocols. These are stressful times, and we continue to see a rise in stress-related types of missions like heart attack, stroke, drug overdose, and COVID-related. Approximately 13%, and it's been as high as 18% of STARS missions were suspected or confirmed COVID cases. During these challenging times, we recognize that our municipalities are facing significant financial strife, which is magnified by the fact that there are many who rely upon you for help, including STARS. STARS is experiencing a significant decrease in funding in all areas, including government. Our 10-year affiliation agreement with Alberta Health Services, which provided 20% government funding, has expired. In 2019, STARS received $9.2 million from Alberta Health Services in support. While we still await the results of the recent Alberta Health Services HEMS review, they have extended the agreement with STARS until September of this year. So we have a projected total of $7.3 million in funding coming. STARS fundraising initiatives have all seen a decline. The 2020 STARS lottery did not sell out, and that reflected a $1.2 million revenue loss. The calendar campaign is down by more than half from previous years. Site registration revenue is considerably less with the uncertainty that the energy sector faces. With COVID-19 still looming around us, most of STAR's fundraising events have all been canceled for the unforeseeable future. This means several more $1 million in lost revenue. The STARS lottery is our single largest funding source, so we must move forward with the 2021 STARS lottery, which just launched here just about a week ago. We hope that the Albertans will continue to stand by our side. And in the first week of the STARS 2021 lottery, it is outperforming any predictions, and we are seeing a rise in individual donor support as well. On the expenditure side, we see an increase in aviation due to the demand of the increasing missions, and we are still moving forward with the pilot training for the new helicopters coming. Administration costs reflect a decrease, as we too suffered the heartache of having to downsize staff members across all 6 bases. We're truly grateful to our municipal partners like you, who represent an area of support for STARS that has remained steadfast and unwavering. You continue to be a lifeline for STARS. Thank you. Behind the scenes, when people hear STARS, the red helicopter comes to mind. STARS offers so much more than that to the communities that we serve. Behind the scenes, the Emergency Link Center provides vital emergency response and coordination with access to all available resources, providing an immediate safety network 24/7. STARS transport physicians provide the critical care oversight and guidance on all calls deemed critical, regardless of the method of transport, and support all pre-hospital practitioners. They provide physician-to-physician consultation with rural hospitals, and they orchestrate the complex logistics along with facilitating with the receiving hospitals to coordinate time-sensitive situations like the need for immediate trauma surgery, cath labs required for heart attack, CAT scan to confirm a stroke so that the thrombolytics can be administered. There is a plethora of STARS transport physicians' involvement taking place behind the scenes. Let's have a look at an overview of missions. This is to mid-December. So overall, 2020 reflects increasing missions across our entire province. There are also, these will include critical interfacility transfers from the rural hospitals and incidents where a patient from a scene call may have been delivered to the hospital, but now require emergency transport to tertiary care. Aside from the May long weekend, which is our busiest weekend of the entire year, the majority of STARS missions occur during the months of September to March. So we are now in a busier season. It's important to remember that we all travel and commute. And in taking a look at the exact same time frame over 5 years, we can see 168 missions within the County of Newell compared to 581 missions flown throughout the areas that include your bordering neighbors. Any of these missions may include County of Newell residents as well. This is a testament to the united efforts of Alberta's municipalities, all working together with STARS in the fight for life, and the reasons why STARS has been serving Albertans for over 35 years. The BK Legacy Fleet has served STARS well for 35 years. Fleet replacement was inevitable, and a united fleet will increase safety and significantly reduce cost. The H145 is breakthrough technology. Advanced avionics will reduce crew fatigue, especially in back-to-back missions, and the unique Finistron tail will allow precise maneuverability in tight landing situations. With increased fuel efficiency, speed, and range, it can offer as much as a 30 minutes additional flight time. Currently, we have 3 H145s operational in Calgary and Saskatoon, and the third one provides backup and training flights. We just received delivery very, very recently of number 4 and 5, and a new 5-bladed system has been announced, which will provide increased lift and load capacities, especially beneficial in mountainous terrain. So number 6 and 7 are going to be the 5-bladed system and expected to arrive sometime after March now due to another COVID delay. We look forward to the completion of the entire fleet by the end of 2022, and all 9 H145s will be identically equipped as intensive care units. This is the look of the future. This is our new intensive care unit environment. The combination of exceptional critical care expertise provided by our STARS crew, the most technologically advanced intensive care unit environment, along with blood on board. These all work together in concert with STARS transport physicians to result in STARS providing the highest level of critical care available. Federal and provincial governments both embrace the vision of a fleet of H-145s to serve Western Canada, and they provided funding for 7 of the 9 helicopters required. Then, in the middle of the capital campaign, COVID-19 hit. We must not lose sight of the vision, as the future of Albertans depend on it. To date, an additional $14 million has been raised from individuals, corporate, and a few municipalities who, in addition to annual operational support, also pledged a fleet gift. There is still a market for the aging BK-117 legacy fleet, and it will depend on market value and the rate of the US dollar. We anticipate that the sale of the previous fleet could generate as much as half of the remaining $30 million campaign. Very recently, we just confirmed an additional 2 municipal gifts to Alberta's fleet, so it now brings us closer to $14 million remaining. We thank you, County of Newell, for your continuing to stand by our side in the fight for life. Together, we have saved countless lives. Your standing motion of $2 per capita supports and ensures that the County of Newell residents continue to have the highest level of critical care available to them. The bottom line is STARS cannot do this alone. STARS is being called to assist with the pandemic in addition to the regular ongoing daily demands, and with much less revenue coming in. The most important time is now. What we as Albertans do or fail to do, it will be amplified in the future, and the stakes are undeniably high. You are STAR's reason for being, and we thank you very much for our partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenda.
Now I'm just trying to see how I can get back to you.
There will be some questions, I'm sure.
Let's see.
There you are. All right, Brian, you had a question?
I have a few questions. I guess my first one is in regards to the new helicopter, the H-145. Does it have more range?
Yes, it has a slight bit more range between fuel efficiency and the speed. It allows for about approximately 30 minutes more flight time.
Okay, so that might help answer the other questions that I have, and it's mostly in regards to your calls and where they take place, and this goes hand in hand with the HEMS review that you referred to. And should there be a recommendation that at the conclusion of the HEMS review that some of these bases be moved outside the city of Calgary, would that be something that STARS would be receptive to the upper management? Mostly because I guess, and I'll follow that comment with some what I participated in the HEMS review, is that you guys don't respond to almost nothing within the city of Calgary for logical reasons. I mean, it's done by ground ambulance. And so being able to have a base that is situated somewhat more centrally to rural Alberta, being able to reach the breadth and width of the province as far as the corners of Cyprus, and then also to the western side of the province, would make that a little bit more palatable when you think about the location of a base. Now, I know there's more dynamics to all of this. I mean, you have pilots, you have maintenance, you have all those things. So I'm not trying to suggest that that's something that would happen or should happen. I'm just wondering if STARS would be open to something, should that HEMS review come out, that would be a solution to all helicopter services. And by that I mean, I don't mean that you compete with Halo, but bottom line is we're limited on the amount of money that we can allocate in our budget situation, and having two very valuable emergency systems within our province, sometimes I question it, and I'm sure some of our council has done the same thing as far as could it not be done with one system instead of 2. So I'll shut up for a while and just ask you to provide your comments. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think, we have seen over the years, we have seen a lot of different situations as far as being able to provide the best response to the most areas, which is why, we have looked at other areas. We have expanded and worked with lots of communities in order to acquire fuel caches throughout the entire province, so that can also extend our range by being able to refuel. I think, I can't really answer as to what the executive leadership would be looking at. I think the results of the HAMS review, which we are very hopeful to still, looking forward to receive, will help to determine, working with Alberta Health Services, as to what is going to be the best method or the best location for bases or whatever may occur in order to provide the best services to the most communities across Alberta. So I think that remains to be seen as far as, what are all going to be the highlights that the HEMS review points to. And again, working in concert with Alberta Health Services to provide what we can to Albertans.
Okay, thank you. I have one other question, but I'll let the others maybe ask their question, and then I'll come back to it, please, if I may, Madam Reeve.
Yes, other questions? Looks like you're handling them all for us, Brian.
Well, it had mostly to do with your capital replacement, and just wondering what you had in reserves, what STARS has in reserves for capital replacement. I didn't see that line item on that spreadsheet that you provided. You had the different what you're short, which was I think 14 million. But I was just curious what your actual capital reserves are. And I know I could probably find it on the website, but I was just curious if you had that information.
I'm sorry, I don't have that information as a specific total. I know that over the last couple of years, we've had some real challenges, in the lottery not having had a sellout, which has reflected, and, ongoing things happening. So I know that we have had to dip into reserves. And of course, as any viable entity, you have to have that, especially when you're operating. We have had 11 helicopters. We're downsizing now, but in order to provide for that and for anything that arises, whether it's a cracked tail boom or whatever, those can be upwards of $1 million each. And when you have 11 helicopters that you're providing for, you do have to have reserves. But the current situation has also caused us some having to dip into reserves. So I can.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that reserves are a bad thing. I just know that the last time I investigated, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 million, and I know that's a while ago. That's a couple of years ago, and that number's probably significantly different. I just thought maybe you'd have that in front of you. So, not to question the reserve policy. We like reserves. We like it as far as managing businesses and being able to replace capital assets. But yeah, if you could dig that up and send it to me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Clarence?
Just as a point of interest, are there other municipalities in our area or within our area that are also contributing towards STARS? And just wondering.
Yes, the majority of, I'm just looking over here on my map to my left here. So the majority of your surrounding bordering municipalities are supportive as well. Currently we are for the rural municipalities across Alberta, we're at about 90% that they are all contributing. Anywhere from $2 per capita up to $90 per capita.
My question is more from within, and I guess I should maybe just go right out and ask if the city of Brooks is contributing.
To this, no, but to not, it's because I have not been there to ask them. Right now, we've been working much more closely over the years with the rural municipalities as well as some of the towns. Cities are a little bit more difficult in the fact that, you know, like within most of the cities, it is ground support, you know, but we are supporting, like the slide that we talked about behind the scenes. There's always that support for the whole health network as a whole, provided by the transport physicians. So it's allowing us an opportunity to at least bring more information to the cities. But currently, it's more the rural sector and the towns and villages across Alberta as well that are part of the support.
Well, it's very interesting because as I look into your numbers, and certainly the number of Brooks critically inter-facility transfers is 117. Now, some of those are county residents, some of those are city residents, but and if it's done by population, I mean, probably a third of them are county and 2/3 are city. But that's it. That's just an interesting observation to me that a large part of our numbers are there, and I would guess that if I was to make a guess of that 168 total that we have over the last 5 years, at least half of them are from the city of Brooks. And I think they need to see those numbers.
Yes, and I do agree, and I am looking forward to opportunities to start bringing further information to cities across the province. Currently, Grand Prairie is the only city that has been supported from the start, because they were really instrumental in helping to get the base established in Grand Prairie for the northern region, as well as, you know, we've had over the years a couple of cities that have just provided some interim support. So that is an area that I definitely look forward to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just a little bit of information further to that. I know last spring, and I believe it was during COVID time. COVID had happened because it was a Zoom meeting of a lot of the Southeast folks, because it was in regards to Halo, but it was a topic of conversation there, Councillor Amulong also, that the cities, towns, and villages traditionally have not been a part of the STARS, or particularly STARS, but also of the Halo support, sort of a different approach because of the, So it's good that STARS is looking at it, because I think, yes, definitely, all the traveling that is done and all the inter-hospital transfers certainly is not just rural people.
Certainly, and we do have to also keep in mind that for interfacility transfers, the block funding from the 10-year agreement that we did have with Alberta Health Services was to provide an offset for, you know, interfacility transfers from hospitals.
And that agreement is over?
Yes. Well, they have extended basically until September of this year, when we were in hopes to have the results of the HEMS review. And then I think that will leave it open to renegotiate.
Right. Thank you. Anything else for Glenda? Seeing no other hands, Glenda, thank you for taking your time today to update us. Much appreciated. And there certainly has been lots of interest in the HEMS review, and it has gone on much longer than any of us thought. But hopefully September will, which is still quite a long ways away, will bring us some resolution to some of the, or at least some recommendations. May not bring resolution, but you stay well, and thank you for your work with STARS.
Well, thank you very much to all of you for your continued support. We appreciate your partnership so much. And I look forward to seeing you in person next time.
Yes, we usually have you for lunch, so it's just not able to happen this year, but
I will look forward to it. Thank you both. Thank you all so much for your time.
bye-bye. All right, we will return to our ASB item. Todd had, I think, completed his update, and I wasn't sure if there were other questions for Todd. But we will move into the resolutions and the request for a decision regarding the conference. And maybe we should talk about that first. There is an agenda, and Todd, if you're available to give us a bit of an overview of what your thoughts are on this year's Ag Service Board conference. And it's disappointing that we can't be having a normal one because it is a favorite of everyone's. But this year, yeah, what do you think, Todd, for the day that they have planned?
Sorry, I didn't have that one brought up. I'm just going to hopefully search it here. Oh, man.
Oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't part of our agenda, was it? But we we did receive it.
Oh yeah, I did send that yesterday, didn't I?
Yes.
ASB conference. Thanks for that, Molly. So I think it is, I've probably been pretty forward in the past. I think the ASB conference is a great conference. Anything that the AAAF puts together is obviously just wonderfully thought through and perfectly organized. So it's a little bit, I think, it's disappointing to me that we can only really learn for about half a day before we get into the resolution session. I know some of the benefit of the Ag Service Board Conference in the past has been the networking, and we'll obviously miss that. But we, the club route stuff, that, that's kind of first up, be okay to listen into. I don't know much about the global assurance system. So obviously that's going to be really good to listen to. So it's just, I wouldn't say it's a typical ASB conference for sure, but nothing's typical right now. But if those, we're going to be getting a municipal registration done anyways, because I'm definitely going to take part in the day. It just depends on how many others want to take part, whether we need to continue with the council meeting or not, I guess.
Right. So what are people thinking, council? It's a conflict day. Brian?
Well, I would suggest that the two that are selected to be our designate voters for the resolution participate, and that yeah, we just leave it at that. I wouldn't favor changing the date. I mean, I'm going to miss the conference, and so like you said, Todd, if there's a half a day of information and then resolutions, we're all going to have some input into resolutions as we go through them today, and give an idea how we wish our two designates to vote on them. And beyond that, I don't see a reason to cancel council for that. We'll just designate two, and they can carry on with the meeting. But
well, and interestingly enough, to Brian's point, if perhaps the January 21st council meeting wasn't exceptionally busy, the resolution session starts at 2:30. And being that we're going to have a municipal registration anyways, you guys could technically all join in at that 2:30 time frame if council was over. So, you might miss out on some of the I guess, learning opportunities, but we would still be able to take part in that resolution process.
Any other thoughts? Sound like a plan? Yeah. So do we have some volunteers to participate for the whole day and be the resolution people? Brian?
Well, I was going to nominate Lionel and Tracy. Those are the two people that were on my screen at that particular moment, so they caught my eye. If they would be willing to let their name stand, I would nominate them.
Tracy's okay with that, and Lionel too?
Yes, I'll be okay with that.
So we need to put that in a motion. So Brian, you would make that a motion to have Tracy and Lionel be our voting representatives, as well as our representatives. Well, actually, we'll just say voting, because then if we wish to attend, we can anyhow. That conference starts at, does it start at 8 o'clock in the morning or 8:30?
Yeah, 9 o'clock, opening remarks.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock, okay. So I guess if you're really keen, you could sit in for the first hour as well, anybody else that wants to, before our council meeting starts. So we'll have Tracy and Lionel to attend. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Tracy and Lionel and Brian, for that. So let's now go back to our resolutions and take a look at them so people have some input to help out with the discussion or their voting. And I know the first one was one from Foothills Little Bow, the weed issues. 9-2.
And I believe we also talked about this one at the South Region ASB conference as well. I should note that Wayne was waving, and I wasn't sure if he was saying hi or, oh, he's good now. Never mind.
Thank you for noticing. Sorry, Wayne. All good.
I believe we talked about this, the weed issues on oil and gas sites at our South Region conference, and I believe we actually kind of spoke at that time against the idea of supporting this resolution, and I believe we voted against it as well. So I feel like we probably still would feel the same way now. I don't know that for sure, but I think everybody's going through some hard times, and I believe one of our comments, and it might even have been Brian that mentioned it, that sometimes having great partners means you have to step up a little bit in times like this. So maybe there are farmers that should be doing some of the control work on their own lands as well during these times. Was that about right, Brian, if you remember it? Something like that.
I think that was our feeling, that and there's lots of farmers who just do this already, just take care of it. So we'll leave it at that.
Yep. And
Okay.
I think it's a good sentiment. It might be harder on those big tracts of prairie land where you might have to go out and do a bunch of work that way, but certainly I would think for most folks it wouldn't be a large concern. That's just me. I'm just taking notes as we go. I hope that's okay.
You bet. So the next one would be the pesticide container program. And this is another one that seems to come up quite often. Todd? Or is this, is this something different this year?
Nope, same thing. Vulcan County really doesn't enjoy doing the pesticide container collection. And they've been really pushing to have it be done at the retail sites. And maybe that's something that they have to look at in their own municipality. And I think we even spoke to this, our system seems to work. We never get any complaints from Ray. Every time I've ever asked him, it seems to be near flawless. And I think Clean Farms is even making it a little easier now, where at your retailer, they give you those plastic bags So you can actually, they get, it's a free, I think it's free, Clean Farm plastic bags that you put your rinsed used pesticide containers in, tie up the bag and bring them to wherever. So it, you know, it takes, I don't know, let's say 10 or 15 jugs, puts them all in one package. So it makes it a little bit easier for them to pick up, and it makes a little bit easier for everybody to bring in. So I don't know. I know we voted against this one as well. I think, not that we don't want to support our neighbors, but I think it might be more of a local to Vulcan thing that we don't want to push to the whole province.
Lionel and Brian?
Well, we tried a satellite collection system before in the past, if you remember, Todd, over by the on the Lake Newell Road, and that was a disaster. If it's not manned, it does not work at all. And so I think the way we do it now is the only way that you could responsibly do it without creating a bigger mess. And it works very well at the landfill. It's manned. It's been a good program there.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with you, Lionel. That it was well before my time that that site was opened on 17.4, but it was within my time that we cleaned it up. And every year we would have to go there and pick up obsolete pesticides and, you know, jugs that had been sitting out over the winter time that we hadn't noticed or whatever, and everything gets brittle. And it's really not a great thing to have an unmanned site like that. You're right. So no, I think you're right. The way we do it now is perfect. The transfer stations accept them, and then the obviously the regional landfill accepts them as well. So.
Well, I agree with everything that Lionel and I guess the only thing I want to add is that our producers are pretty aware of this, and they're very respectful of doing this, doing their part in keeping our ecosystem safe, and I just think it makes so much sense to have it in coordination with the landfill. You can go to the landfill, you can do two things at once. You can deposit your jugs, and you can bring the stuff that belongs in the cell there. And you know, I guess what we have to do more, I think, is tell people about how we're doing it. And it's not that we're the best ones, but I think you need to reiterate that, you know, the options out there work for our landowners, and they would work for landowners throughout this province. Doesn't matter what jurisdiction you're in. And I'm not trying to be critical of Vulcan, but I think that, you know, when there's all options out there that counties and municipalities such as ourselves are doing, they need to be highlighted so that others can at least adopt that, or else look at them as far as a solution to what's being suggested here. So I hope that if we do get a chance to speak to this, that we also reiterate that, and it's not just about voting against it, but it's about providing alternatives that work in not only our jurisdiction, but others too.
And if I could just add to that quickly, I think sometimes local issues need a local solution. And this is a great thing for Vulcan if you know, if they could convince their local suppliers of pesticides to set up a collection system, it would be no different than our collection system. It would be manned. It would be something that could be operated that way, right? But I don't know that we would want to force that into other areas that wouldn't work, right? So I just think it's such a local thing. I'm not sure why they want to push it to a provincial program. That's all.
Yes, local solution, local problem. Okay, sounds good. Kelly had her hand up also.
My question was to the provincial ASB board, or are these resolutions vetted, Todd? Like, we've talked about that, we've discussed this before, and the conversation was always similar. So what is the vetting process at the provincial board to get this resolution through every year?
You know, I know that resolutions are submitted to the Provincial ASB committee, and they're checked for intent, and they're checked for all the other good formatting type things. But I believe that if somebody has a request to the province of support, they're allowed to make that request, providing it's probably not like derogatory or something silly. But yeah, I believe it's political will. If you want to put it out there and have everybody vote, that's kind of how it works, I believe.
Well, I mean, the way you describe it, it's free will, right? And it takes time at every board, and so there should be a process that goes through. Is it a local problem? Is it a provincial-wide problem? You know, there should be some vetting involved. Just a thought.
It's a great thought. I don't have a lot of input into that process, but I could certainly pass that along.
Was there another question, or is it Kelly's hand that is still raised? I can't get my computer to tell me. Oh, she's good. All right. So we'll move on to, there are two strychnine related resolutions. And from what I could see, the first one is to try and link some research into strychnine, and also an extension for the third resolution. And the fourth one is simply to get it back, correct, Todd?
That's right. The third and fourth one deal with strychnine. One is from Flagstaff and one is from Stettler. So it's interesting when we just talked about that, Kelly. These are both central region municipalities. So it probably could have been combined into one resolution, but it wasn't, so that's okay. So the first one, dealing with, like Molly said, the research on finding an effective and safe alternative to strychnine. I think that's a great strategy. I believe we've tried that strategy in the past. It has not been very successful. I think it's a great resolution, and we should probably be supporting it. The only thing that I find a little bit troubling is that they add in the words "and safe alternative." And the only reason I find that troubling is because if you follow the label on strychnine, it is safe. So it's just not safe to the gophers that are eating it. So that's my only complaint to that one. But I would recommend that we support to get strychnine back, no matter how we have to go about it.
So support for 3 and for 4, Todd?
Well, in my opinion.
Yeah. It seems as though there's never been a better solution. And if we let the coyotes work on it, because we're taking away that incentive for a couple of years and see how they do, because there is a belief that the gophers go up and the coyotes are down. And so, yeah, strychnine seems to be a good answer.
And
so
one
we'll
of the
go with supporting.
Sorry, Molly. One of the downfalls with COVID is India has had some very strong restrictions, and India is where the strychnine active ingredient comes from. And so the manufacturer of our 2% liquid strychnine that we purchase is having a really hard time getting it. And as of right now, I think we're only looking at only going to be able to get about half of what we order, and they're hopeful that they'll be able to get us the other half of what we ordered before the March 4th deadline. But we're not confident right now. So that's another reason they're pushing for an extension, is due to COVID. And the Alberta government and the Saskatchewan government have both done that.
That's excellent and good to know. Wayne?
So if the Alberta government and Saskatchewan government already are pushing to extend it, what's the point of this resolution, or is it going to be pushed on to the federal government?
It is a federal deal, so we need the provinces to be doing what they're doing, and I guess this shows support to the provinces from the municipal level. Good to go, Todd?
I certainly am.
Okay, we'll move on then to fusarium testing.
Yeah, fusarium got taken off the act, and now we want to force some seed testing, which is an interesting one. Again, I think the County of Barrhead has done a good job of outlining the intent of their resolution, but it seems to be a relatively local issue, and I don't think that there's any reason that we should say no to this necessarily, except that you can get a seed test done at any time. So if fusarium-free seed is important to you after it's been cleaned, or having a certificate that says it's fusarium-free is important to you as a purchaser, you can do that at any time. You can get that seed lot tested. You can pay for that. But forcing that to be done kind of seems a little bit, in our area, it would seem like it wouldn't be a great solution. Being that I don't know about all of our seed necessarily, but being that fusarium is quite widespread in the County of Newell and in the South in general, I don't know that it would be a worthwhile venture for us to necessarily support mandatory seed testing.
Thoughts? I support your thinking, Todd. Lionel?
Yes, I agree with you also, Todd. I think, the more restrictions we put in our way, the more roadblocks we have to go around. And so I really am not very much in favor of this one at all.
Okay, we'll move on to the ag research checkoff one. And this is obviously because of all the cuts that ag research seems to have taken in the last, well, just ongoing for a long time now, pushing it on to private industry really to be doing a lot more research. Todd, yeah, and there are, again, there's a couple of in a row resolutions here now too about research, I believe. Go ahead, Todd.
I don't know that I have a whole lot of good things to say or explain on these ones. I guess maybe you guys would probably understand more about the checkoff dollars than I do, because that's never been something that I've been personally involved in. But my basic understanding is when they sell a commodity, they take checkoff dollars and it goes back to that commodity group to use for research, their operations, promotion of that commodity, those kinds of things. And my understanding is also that many of these checkoffs are voluntary. So you can request that you don't pay the checkoff dollars. So being that you can request to get them back, I wonder if there's a way that you could request that you could send them to someplace else, or if you just got them back and sent them to someplace else. I guess that would be your right to do so at that time. Does anybody have more, could enlighten me a little bit more on the checkoff stuff that would that I've said wrong? I probably have said it wrong.
I like the idea of the farmers getting their money back and then choosing where they send their money. Most of them would just put it in their pocket. Brian.
Oh, you said that so bluntly, Molly. That was awesome. Anyway, so the only one that, and Clarence will probably have a lot more information on this than me, was the dairy checkoff, and it was mandatory, and it applied to promotion of your product, and to I'm not sure if there was a research component, but that's what it fed into. And it wasn't, you couldn't apply to get it back. It was part of you selling and doing business in a country that had a system that could take care of your product. And it worked really well, and it was a valuable system. I think most producers, as much as they didn't like paying more than they had to, seen the value of it. And I personally don't like the fact that you could direct it, because then there's going to be circumstances where we could see research being, I think research would be scaled down even more. I don't like to think that we would lose our research. It's already been cut off at the knees for most part, especially in our area. And seeing only the ones that you would have a research facility within your jurisdiction or close proximity, I would be fearful that those research facilities would suffer badly.
Lionel?
Well, I was involved in a couple of checkoffs in my career, and one of them was with the alfalfa seed, and the other one was the beef producers. And so, in my experience, the largest contributors to those checkoffs, they would opt out. They would take their money back. So they may get the benefit of the research more than anybody else, but they contributed nothing to it. So I'm in favor of it, but I'm not in favor of it at the same time. It's a little bit difficult. I know ourselves, we never did ask for our money back, but I know that some neighbors talk about it, and they were quite large contributors. They all got their money back. They got the same benefits from it that I did, but they also had the cash in their pocket.
This might become one that you can listen to the argument and vote as you see fit. Wayne and Clarence.
Well, I agree with Brian that industry, if you're in the industry and you've got to go forward, you need the research. I think doing this helps your industry, but I don't believe you should be able to opt out of it, because Lionel is absolutely right. The big guys will say, no, I want my money back. So they take the benefit and they don't support the programs. So I'm in favor of it if there's no opt out.
And I think we might have started to move away from, and it's probably in my explanation, but we kind of moved away from a little bit of the intent of the, I think, because they're saying they not necessarily take the checkoff dollars away, just be able to have the option to direct them in whichever way the producer chooses. So if the producer doesn't want to give them back to, I don't know if there's a checkoff for wheat, let's say, but they don't want to give it to the Alberta Wheat Board. I apologize, I'm not very good at checkoff dollars. Then they could, if that producer wanted to send it to Farming Smarter instead, they would have that option.
Or even the Ag Service Boards.
Right, which we are always looking for more money.
Clarence and Kelly, and then we'll move on.
Well, I just think this is a slippery slope here, and this is just targeting research supposedly. But when I look through the names of these groups that are on the bottom, the departments, and certainly I'm most familiar with the milk. I mean, all these groups have lobbied very, very hard and done a lot of work to try to make these checkoffs compulsory. It's the lifeline for producer groups. I think we just keep our hands off this. Let them worry about whether they have mandatory or being able to, or not mandatory, basically checkoffs, and leave it to them to work that out on their own. I would definitely vote against this. I think it's a real slap in the face to producer groups, and they have a hard enough time sticking up for their particular interests as it is. And if they've got mandatory checkoffs, I think they earned it, and leave it there, because most of them do good work. Sure, there are going to be individual times when people don't agree with them, but they're all democratic organizations that have proper procedures. And for us as a council to work against that is, to me, not the way to go.
Kelly?
My comment was just going to pick on the wordage in the resolution. It says on various agricultural products. To me, that's pretty vague. Like Clarence alluded to, it does refer to the commissions and the boards, but it doesn't clarify what products that this resolution is speaking to. So it's a pretty wide open resolution to pass, in my opinion.
So my notes say leaning towards no.
I think they've got that message.
And I think in the peace country, there was certainly some hard feelings when the commodity groups, specifically Alberta barley and Alberta wheat, I believe, they were the driving force behind getting Fusarium off the Alberta Pest Act, the Agricultural Pest Act. I think there was maybe some different feelings in the peace country about that for sure.
So then going on to the delegation of ASBs and fieldmen to Agricultural Association and commodity groups. This is to lobby for support of having ag service boards and ag fieldmen represented at the table for many of those same boards we're talking about, correct?
That's very correct, and I think my comment might help. Being that Northern Sunrise is in the piece, and being that our AAAF president is from Northern Sunrise County, you can get the feeling that maybe there wasn't enough communication between ag service boards and the commodity groups when going through some of the red tape reduction on the agricultural pest. And I think that would be at least my opinion of why Northern Sunrise would ask for ag service board members and AAAF to be involved in these commodity groups. But that being said, they are like Clarence said, sorry, Molly, I'm shutting your mic off. They're a democratic process. So if an ag service board member or a AAAF member was to put their name forward, I guess technically they could be voted onto that commodity group executive, right? I think the biggest thing we need to do is keep that line of communication open between ag service boards, local ag service boards, the provincial ag service board, and the commodity groups to make sure everybody's interests are being thought about going forward. I turned you back off, Molly.
Okay. So yes, that is an interesting note, Todd, that these both have seemed to be the result of something that has gone on up there. So what you're saying is that to make this sort of compulsory, it could already be done if people wanted to have an ag service board member be on a board.
Yeah,
Right.
certainly.
So it's a little bit, it's interesting, we're talking about red tape reduction at the same time we're trying to legislate or go back and ask for further legislation. So we'll trust you guys to listen, and if we're missing something on these, you can change your vote, I suppose, or if you're convinced. But okay, let's move on to reinstating provincial ag staff, which I guess is a nice lobby sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great ask, but I don't know that this is something that would ever be reconsidered. So that's unfortunate. I learned today that they shut a bunch of the Manitoba agricultural offices as well. So this seems to be a common theme amongst the provinces.
So Anne-Marie and Brian?
Well, similar thoughts, like good luck with this resolution. It will probably never happen, but in their therefore be it resolved, they mentioned 3 specific producer groups, and maybe if they take this serious, we should limit it to just agriculture. Why would you mention only the 3? Like forestry is not included, but there's some that are left out, so maybe it should just say agriculture.
Anne-Marie, Brian?
Yeah, and I look at this as something very similar to our police costing. There was parts of rural Alberta that were demanding more police officers, especially along the high number 2 corridor. And this is something that the province would be happy to do, but we might get the bill for it. And might be the same method as a checkoff for the police costing, and that we'll be tasked with providing funding for this because it's going to directly benefit us. So be careful what you ask for when you're putting a resolution like this forward, because they might just give it to you, but they'll send you the bill for it.
Yes. And we've always had trouble with resolutions that are just about money, because we understand the importance. Everybody knows that, but it's, yeah, good luck with it, I guess. You can listen to that discussion. It could be very interesting. And the farmer's right to use farm-saved seed. This one's a little bit more intriguing, maybe.
I think the intent is the same as the checkoff dollars. The thinking, the endpoint royalties, and again, you probably know more about this. I had last year talked to a couple of the local CCAN dealers, and they weren't even confident that this was needed. But the idea is that, I guess I don't even know the best way to put this, but when a farmer buys superb wheat, plants that superb wheat, and then keeps that seed ongoing, providing it's good quality, that the people that created superb wheat aren't seeing the necessary investment back to get the next good variety to plant. I believe is the intent of the endpoint royalties. So I don't know. I think isn't this one off the shelf already? I thought this was kind of a done deal. It was gone. So I'm not sure if there is a way to discontinue the practice now or not. But.
Does anyone know more about this? No? Lionel?
Well, I wouldn't say that I know more about it, but, you know, we all like the new technology and the new and the investment by the companies to provide new varieties for us. It's been a huge benefit. And yet we don't want to contribute to that. That's not right. So I'm waffling a little bit on this one, but one way or another, the companies that put the investment in to produce the new varieties need to get paid for it. That's about all I've got.
So Lionel, this would be an age-old problem, right? Like it's gone on forever. You buy seed and you pay for it, and within that cost is research value. And
yes.
Over the years, you're able to keep seed and use it again. And eventually, probably you have to quit that practice and go buy some new seed.
Pretty much, that's correct. But if you notice what happened in the canola, the new canola varieties, they put a terminal gene in them so they wouldn't reproduce themselves. And then there were farmers were up in arms because Monsanto or whoever was taking over. Well, you know, they put the money out for the research, so they do deserve it.
Who would, wow, there could be a lot of good movies about espionage and in the seed world. And I didn't know it could be that exciting, Lionel. Terminal genes, genetics, wow.
Yes, they did in canola, yes. Quite a few of the new varieties are that way. So you can't reproduce it out of the seed that you
Harvested.
That's right.
It's funny you say that, Lionel, because volunteer canola is like one of the worst weeds.
Yeah. It hasn't been totally successful.
It will volunteer, yes, but you won't get the same genetic trace on that volunteer product. So you won't get the same benefits of the research.
Hubie.
So I see, Todd, they've implemented this in Australia and France. Have you heard anything about how it's worked over there?
Oh man, I shouldn't admit this, Hubie, but I barely know enough about it here, let alone in Australia or France. Yeah, this is a kind of a part of the industry that I haven't been involved in. So my notes say listen. So,
yeah.
Sorry, Lionel and Tracy.
No, that sounds good. I just think it's too complicated. I mean, how are they going to go after people who keep seed and they're trailing royalties, they're calling it? I mean, talk about red tape reduction. I don't know. I can't understand how, or like Lionel points out, or the research will figure it out. If it's worth that much money, they'll do something. Wayne.
The trouble is, if we don't do something like that, eventually producers like Monsanto and Bayer, they might even be the same company now, will just stop selling seed in Canada. They'll say, well, we're not getting our return on our investment here. So they'll go to Australia and they'll do their investment there. They'll get this passed in the States and they'll say, we're not going to do any research for seed development in Canada because we're not getting paid for it. So this may sound good to farmers, but in the long run, they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Yes, research is important one way or another. You're absolutely right, Wayne. All right, you guys, you can listen to that and see if you can come back and report more clarity for us. And the final one is the federal fuel charge.
Yeah, the old carbon tax. So I like this one. I don't really like paying carbon tax. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but this one seems like a say yes to.
I would think most people at that table would say yes to this. I was meaning the bigger table of Ag Service Board people. Anybody have any comments? If I could ever see how carbon tax that is collected and then redistributed to lower income people, and I have no problem, I think taxation should be about that and providing services, but call it what it is. Like, does it truly have an impact at the pump on us? I don't know. I just don't see how something called a farm fuel charge when it's part of your input costs. I don't know how that helps. It's a tax. That's what it needs to be called. Forget the climate connection. I see heads nodding. We leave it with you guys. All right. So 10 resolutions. Tracy, Lionel, and Todd will look after for us. I've taken you past your noon hour, and so I know old people get cranky, so I better say go have some lunch and be back for 1 o'clock, and that's when Stuart will be coming to us with emergency services question or emergency service proposal. So thank you. See you later.